Well, my great-grandmother was the last one in my family in Costa Rica, she would prepare bodies for a funeral. So when someone would die, they would carry the body to her house, and she would like wash them and dress them so they look nice. And they would a lot of times like leave the bodies there overnight. So my mom was born in Costa Rica too, and she would grow up with like having dead bodies in the living room, and she would have to like walk past whenever she went to the bathroom. So it was kind of, well, I think it's cool at least.
Yeah.
And so I heard those growing up. I think I only learned about like my family's history and like preparing bodies probably when I was like a teenager. But I remember when I was 4, my mom had a miscarriage, and afterwards, I remember one morning like she pulled me into her bed and she read me this book about death, like to help me understand. So I think that was the first time I actually had like a talk about what dying means. I'm not scared about death at all. Um, I do believe in an afterlife, and I don't know. I don't think it's not something that worries me, or like I don't live my life concerned about like when I'm gonna die or what's gonna happen afterwards.
What the doctors told me is because of the spinal block, because of the intense amount of anesthesia, it can slow your heart so much that it stops it. Because he was so early, 2 months early, it stopped his heart, and it, in and of itself stopped mine too. So the last thing I remember was them hitting the code button for him, and the nurses were yelling, and that's a scary thing when your doctors and your nurses are running around and yelling, and that's the last thing I remember before everything went black. I think that people see what they want to see. I didn't see it just black. What I saw was my friend who died a couple of years ago, and he was just there, and everything was just kind of like, it wasn't a white light or anything, but he was just there, and I just remember him standing there, and I heard his voice, and he just said, "You can do this. You can do this. You have to be strong. You have to be strong."
Laurel Hill Cemetery is a National Historic Landmark. We were founded in 1836 as a escape from the crowded cemeteries and churchyards located in the city. Back then, this was a rural landscape, and our founders thought it was a peaceful spot for a burial site, and now, of course, the city has sort of surrounded us, and now we are a crowded city environment. But we have 78 acres of rolling hills and some great views of the Schuylkill River. We have about 100,000 people buried here. So there's a Friends of Laurel Hill, which is the nonprofit organization that manages the cemetery and puts on all of our tours and programs. All proceeds from those events go back into preserving the cemetery as a National Historic Landmark. And I think people are attracted to the site because it's different. Our programming is edgy, and we do things that you don't really expect to find in a cemetery.
So the Death Cafe is a means for people, whether family or friends or complete strangers, to get together around a table with food and beverage and talk about something that you're not typically allowed to talk about. And that's death. It's mourning, it's grief, it's end-of-life topics that are typically too taboo and too out there for most people to have in a regular dinner or lunch conversation.
Conversations, whether that's reminiscing, establishing your bucket list,
or even talk about your own philosophies on life and death and afterlife. This is a great venue to just come and be open and be free to talk about what you want to talk about tonight. People that are willing to listen. The Death Cafe turnouts have been really exciting. Our first cafes, which were held in September and October, we drew between 30 and 40 people to each of them, and it was actually a bit overwhelming. And what was even cooler about those was, and even the ones afterwards where we had more about 15 to 20 people in attendance, was that the people that come are so diverse. We have people that are college students that come to retirees. We have men, we have women, we have people that are native English speakers and that aren't, people that have personal experiences with death, and those that are not, they're just curious about philosophy, and people from all different backgrounds, like I said, like students, hospice workers, doctors, business people. It's just been like such a diverse group of people that have come to this cafes over the past 5 months.
It was good. It was good. It was, I would definitely like to come back and do it more. I think it made me want to talk a lot more about what I've experienced in my life, you know, in terms of people dying, which is one aspect of death, because really I came because I wanted to think about my own dying, but it also made me want to share and hear other people's experiences of death in their life, you know, because it's so integral